Good evening. Very happy to be here. You probably know it's not my first time in Israel. I do like to be here, so how that is, I don't know, but it's just, that's the way it is. I'm not questioning it because, I'm not going like, why am I so happy to be here? I'm happy to be here, so that's okay. No need to find big reasons. So this weekend is part of this course, Buddhism from A to Z. So we will talk about some Buddhist views, Buddhist opinions, Buddhist practices, like you just saw one of them. And maybe this is for the ones who are Buddhist. Losang Precious Human Life said that if you prostrate and then you do this, the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, that it just that like kind of purifies eons of negative karma. So now in the century in Switzerland, even though the people who come, they're not all Buddhists, but when I told them this, they very quickly learned the verse. And because in such an easy way to purify negative karma is like, it would be silly not to do it. But then also, the Swiss people, they have no problems with prostrating. They never heard that they should not prostrate. So this is not, they don't have to overcome that kind of, they don't have to make that step. But you can also, because the prostration with the body is not the most important thing. Yeah? Because you also prostrate with your speech, that would be saying that verse to the founder, the Bhagavan, to the Tathagata, the fully enlightened one, and then you say, I take refuge, and you ask for blessings, actually, when you say that verse. So it sounds, again, when you ask for blessings, it sounds as if the Buddha is like some kind of God, that if he finds you worthy, then he will bless you. But no, it's just when we open ourselves and ask for blessings, then that means we are able to receive something from outside, because there are Buddhas outside, not existing from their own side, but still they have the function of fully enlightened beings who are, as their goal, and what they're doing is like a mother. A mother, when she, even she doesn't think consciously about the child, or a father also, and maybe Safta also, and maybe also Saba, so all these people who are very close, when they think about children, like the welfare of these children is, the concern about the welfare of their children is always there, very naturally, isn't it?
Yes.
So that's a Buddha. That's a Buddha is like, it's a fully awakened, a fully enlightened being. And we all have the potential to become like this, and this is why one is practicing Buddhism. Buddhism is not a kind of a system where you worship and where you believe blindly, and you just trust. Like, I don't want to criticize, but like Christianity is, like, Jesus is very, very important in Christianity. And they say you give yourself to Jesus, you become very humble. That's true if you really do it, and you have much less problems. And it's true because your ego kind of it really becomes quite small, but in a good way, because you trust that somebody is there to help you. You trust that somebody is there to support you, and that gives you a lot of confidence. It's not so important that somebody is there or not. What is important is that you believe it. And I've seen people who are in this system who are wonderful people, who really imitate Jesus in non-violence and kindness and all this. But Buddhism is not really that. Buddhism is more a system of knowing. I've been teaching only in German like the last 2 years, so now I have to find the English words. Erkenntnis. Who knows German really well? Erkenntnis. Erkenntnis is kind of seeing something and really knowing it. That's the word, erkenntnis, like really knowing, yeah? So it's a system of knowing. Knowing what? Anybody knows? By the way, if you're not used to how I teach, I don't just go blah, 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 and you have to listen. I throw a lot of questions at you, and then you answer. So it makes it a bit more interesting for you also. You can show, don't be afraid that, oh, I'm not sure if it's right. If it's not right, you're not getting no's or, points or anything like that. I mean, I think the one who gives an answer, even if they're not sure if it's right or wrong, I think those are the ones who get the points. Yeah, just to participate also, because it's like, it's a way of learning, so we learn together, than you just listening, because otherwise it just goes, most of it, over your head. Yeah? Okay, so what are we supposed to know in Buddhism? Question.
Reality.
Which reality?
Both.
Both. Very clever. Very good. Both realities. Yeah, but both levels of existence. The conventional and the ultimate. They are one entity, but they're two different things. And that's what makes it a little bit difficult. And so, what else do we need to know?
That life is suffering?
Huh?
That life is suffering.
That life is suffering. Yeah, not every life is suffering, that there is suffering. Okay, so it's very good, because that's what I wanted to talk about. We'll talk about this tomorrow, maybe a little bit, that there is suffering. And what is suffering? Is, for example, not getting what we want, or getting what we don't want, or losing things that we're very attached to. So I started to do workshops with teenagers, and teenagers who don't want to be there. So to tell them about religion when they're a class, when they don't want to be there, so you have to be really short and you have to be really precise. So the first noble truth for teenagers is life is very easy to be frustrated and it's stressful. So they all go, yes. Yeah, they already agree. So to make teenagers agree with you is like, that's quite a thing. Then if you react with negative emotions like anger and greed and jealousy and pride and all this, it doesn't get easier, it actually makes it worse. So that's the second thing they need to know. There is suffering, but what is creating the suffering is our wrong views, negative emotions, greed, attachment, aversion, and then especially not knowing reality, as you say, as it is. And then the third of these facts is it's possible to eliminate them without having to suppress them or without having to lift them out. And then they start to get interested. And then the fourth one is how, is by the path. Okay? And there's many paths. So this is the pillars of what the Buddha said. This has to be, as long as that is there is suffering, these are the causes for the suffering, which is what?
Hatred and delusion.
Huh?
Greed, hatred and delusion.
Yeah, if you get the official version there, that's one part of it, but there's also another part for the suffering, which is, so you said like delusions or negative emotions, like you can take them all in one pack. What's the other part for the origin of suffering? Karma and negative emotions. Yeah, so that's it. Then it is possible to be totally free of them, and that for Westerner, that's very difficult to accept. So when we talk about emotions in Buddhism, usually they mean negative emotions. They don't even add the word negative. They mean emotions in the sense of it moves, right? And it moves too strong, and it distorts. This is what they mean. So this is why we also have, because one of the teenagers then said, yeah, I don't want to get rid of my emotions. I said, okay, so what they're good for? He said, well, I really love my family. I really respect them. I'm very grateful to them. I don't want to get rid of those feelings. 16-year-old, very tall and very handsome boy saying something like this. I was deeply moved. I was really deep. He had the courage to say these things in front of his class. It was like, wow. So I said, yeah, these emotions we don't want to get rid of, but like the negative ones, like aggression and all this. So it's very difficult to have trust in that. Or do you believe it? I mean, do you have trust that you could one day become a being? I'm not even talking about a human being, because then it's a bit above that. just a being who takes on then whatever form is beneficial, who has an open heart 24 hours a day for all beings, who is like a mother or a father, or I'm not saying the whole package, okay? As Losang, as a Savta and the Saba, who is like uninterruptedly, without effort, being concerned with the well-being of all others. What does it do to you when you hear that? Does it inspire you? You see the possibility that this would be possible. Some people don't know, their poker faces don't want to show what's going on, I'm laying bare my inner life here. You will notice probably as we go along. So it's okay. Maybe we can make whatever I say here. You can go and tell others is fine. I don't mind because also it's on TV, so or on YouTube or whatever. So I have nothing to hide. Like also my negative sides. It's okay because I know them. I don't want to have them, but I do have them. So don't expect me to have absolutely no negative sides. I'm not cultivating them, and I'm not happy about them, but I do have them. And I know I can do something about them. So this is why I'm practicing, not so I can teach you what to do. I practice because of me, because I see how it makes me suffer on top of others. So also, if you are afraid a little bit to show what's bothering you or whatever, I understand because I don't want to go so public. But it's actually quite a relief when we can let go of the facade of always being together and never having any problems and all this. Quite nice to share also, yeah? Very often when you think you're the only one who has that problem and we start to share it with others, the problem becomes much smaller. Or we feel understood by somebody. That is already that. It can be quite healing. Yeah? Okay. So the emotions, what we would like to eliminate or we uproot them are these, what we call negative emotions. And we'll talk a lot about this during these, how long does it last, this program? 2, 3 years, 4 years?
7 years.
You'll be Buddhas by after 7 years, Especially, I know some of you already know so much. But it's good to hear it again and again and again and again and again, because that's what is going to make the change. Because the problem is like, up here you have it very quickly, and if you have a good memory and you learn all these lists, like one says also, the Christians, they believe in God, the Jews also, sorry, but from Europe, yeah. So the Christians, they believe in God, and the Buddhists believe in lists. So we have all these lists where, full of this, made of that, so then knowing them is actually not such a bad thing, but also it's not enough. So you have to internalize the whole thing. So that will take a long time. And it's good if you are prepared for this from the beginning, because otherwise you add frustration to your life. Because it's very, very easy to understand very quickly that negative emotions are not good for me, nor good for others, nor good for the world. It's not complicated. Yeah, okay. Then it's easy to understand. Yeah. I mean, this is one thing that if you come to this course, that's one thing you have to be, you don't have to do anything, okay? But sometimes I say you have to, but you don't have to. But it would be helpful or beneficial that if you would have that view. The view that it's good to be an ethical person, not so that the police comes and puts you into prison, but in a much more further reaching way, because you don't want to harm anybody. That's the lowest motivation. Actually, no, the even lower motivation is you don't want to harm yourself by harming others because you don't feel so good. Then the next higher motivation would be that you don't want to harm others because you know how it feels to be harmed. And then the motivation that comes even above that is you don't want to put hindrances on your path to full awakening. So that's why then you practice ethical conduct. So at the beginning, your ethical conduct is quite clear-cut. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. So it sounds a bit like the Ten Commandments. But it's not really commandments, it's values that one says, you put yourself a certain standard. You say, okay, you make a conscious decision. You see that list and you say, okay, as much as I can, I will not kill, I will not steal, I will not take others' possessions, and take others' possessions, I will not do sexual misconduct, and all this. So there's a very clear list what to abstain from. But the decision whether you want to do that, it has to come from you. It's not because the Buddha says. That's very important. A very, very conscious decision, I want to become an ethical person. And then you can widen the motivation, and think it will help the world. Otherwise, what can I do? We were talking yesterday about Israel and other governments and all this, and how useless or impotent one feels when one sees what's going on and one is not happy with it. But then we can at least say, okay, I will not, what they're doing is not right. It's okay to say this is not right, but then what can you do as an individual? But you can say, at least I'm not going to contribute to that and go the same way, and then don't care at all what kind of actions I do. So it's quite, it does have an effect that you almost feel in your body when you see these things, and instead of hyping yourself up about blah, 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 this is doing that, and this is doing that, then you get all angry. Yeah? But to really say, well, what they're doing is not right. If I'm ever in such a position, I will never do that. And then maybe you also see that you're doing these things in a smaller way. When it is of your advantage, then that we don't care so much about ethical conduct, or when it's expensive. The other day we were talking about here in Israel it's not possible, because when you take the train there's a barrier, so you have to put in your ticket, and when you go out, same way. In Switzerland you can just walk in and out. It's like either you have a ticket or you don't. And so many trains they don't check. Yeah, so I say, well, if you forgot to get a ticket, you can always get it when you get out of the train, when you have arrived. She looked at me and said, what? I said, well, yeah, you had the transport, you would have bought the ticket, but you forgot. You would have bought a ticket on getting on the train, so you can also buy a ticket when you have arrived. She said, but nobody saw it. I said, well, yeah, but you have the transport. It was like, for her, it was, what are you talking about? I would be stupid to pay now. So it was. So this is the problem about ethical conduct. There is so many people who have absolutely no shame or no feeling for that. So we have one also in the group. She says, very often I don't pay for the bus, and I'm sorry to say, I don't feel bad about this. It becomes a habit. The same way as behaving ethically becomes a habit. Like usually when I was a kid, we learned, for example, not to throw things on the floor. And it becomes a habit. I mean, not in the house. Nobody throws things on the floor in the house, but outside, in the street. Yeah, so this is something that we learned. And when we go out have a picnic in nature, we never leave anything behind. Not even eggshells. We would always pack it and take it back home. It's a habit. Neither good nor bad, it's just a habit. So the same way, ethical conduct can become a habit, the same way as unethical conduct becomes a habit, and then you don't notice anymore that you're behaving unethically. I tell you, when I started with Buddhism, and I saw this list, I mean, I knew the list from, I had some Christian teachings, but I never really believed in it. So I saw the list, and I thought, I've done all of this, and even just in this life. So I thought, and I did believe in rebirth from the beginning. I had no problems with that one. I thought, man, I'm going to go to hell next day. So I didn't know what to do. It was my first course, and I was spent a sleepless night, and so the next day the teacher talked about purification. So I was ready to go and do purification. I signed up for a 3-month retreat. So I was behaving in an unethical. I was lying. I was cheating. I was stealing money. I mean, not big, but still, like from where I was working and all this. As long as I didn't get caught, it was okay, I thought. So I needed this. I needed this to have some kind of, fear. Or at least to somebody to show me in a way that I could understand, or something that I took it on, because Christianity, Judaism, all the religions, they say the same thing. But somehow it didn't hit me. I didn't understand. It didn't, as long as you don't get caught, it's fine. Yeah, and you can always cook yourself a kind of nice explanation why you're doing it, or you don't care. So I'm very happy that I found Buddhism and I started to stop lying and cheating and stealing and all this. For me personally, I'm happy. I think I'm happier as a non-harming person than I was before. And definitely people around me, they definitely benefit from that. Yeah. So this is the problem about ethical conduct, that very often it's not so important anymore, and I think also this is why the world is in such a bad state. So at least this is something that we can do. Yeah? It's not so terribly difficult, but we have to go against habits. Yeah? Because ethical conduct, it sounds very nice as long as it's not expensive and we don't have to give up much. You know? But then if we have to give up much and it's uncomfortable, and then it becomes expensive, then it's not so interesting anymore. And then we try to find ways out of it. It's habit, it's normal, it's kind of, yeah. But then there's other people who are deeply, deeply religious, and I see that the way their ethical conduct is like, it's amazing. There was one guy in Switzerland, he's Mormon. Mormon, you say Mormon? Anyways, yeah, so a sect of Christianity. They have very, very pure ethical conduct. And he was working for the post office. So he was he was driving a car, and he used it for a personal errand. And so what he did, he didn't want to go and say it, because otherwise, this is the problem also, you can't even be honest, because otherwise they punish you too much. So he bought a lot of stamps that would be about the value of the petrol that he spent, and then he just tore them up and threw them away. I thought, like, wow, how amazing. He wanted to pay, but he knew, so it's also, you have to be clever. He knew that if he would go and say that, he might not really lose his job, but it wouldn't be very beneficial. You see what I mean? Okay. He's working for the post office. He uses the post office card. He used it for a personal errand that he's not supposed to do, because they're only supposed to use it for their... So he wanted to pay, but he couldn't go to the boss and say, hey, look, I did something private. So he bought stamps from the post office and then just tore them up.
Why didn't he use the stamps?
Because otherwise it would have been cheating.
Yeah. He cannot buy stamps and use them?
No, because using it means you use it for yourself.
His own stamps, which his own money.
For that, he bought new stamps when he wanted to send his letters.
Like giving them money. Like
because if you put a stamp on a letter, the post office is giving you a service that you have to pay. Yeah. So I was deeply impressed by that man. I thought that was really.
It's not so impressive, because it's a shame that you just throw it away.
Yeah, instead of using something.
Huh?
Saying it would be better to
No, he wanted to pay the post office without the post
And
office
then
having to do a service.
And then he could donate the stamps to people that need it.
Why? But then
Because throwing it away is not...
throwing it away, he was paying the post office that he owed the money to
Yeah,
because of the
I understand.
petrol.
He
Yeah.
paid, but throwing away something that's worth something is not a good idea.
He meant well.
he didn't want to get service.
No,
He wanted to pay for the transfer, not for...
I mean, it's
Yeah,
like,
okay.
it's okay,
It's
let's
okay,
just
yeah.
whatever. His intention was really good. He wanted
I
to
know.
repay, and that's what he did. So this is why I say I was deeply impressed by that. Because other people would think, okay, nobody noticed, so that's it. And I just leave it at that. But ethical conduct, actually, if you want to have a successful spiritual practice, ethical conduct is the basis. Otherwise, you will not shamatha all this without ethical conduct. I'm sure Glenn talked about this. It's very difficult. And we just had a shamatha retreat with Venerable Renee, and he said, the best thing in order to develop shamatha is to have a boring life. A boring life. Because you're sitting in your sessions and nothing is bothering you. You're not home, everything goes very smoothly, nobody has any problems, you're not attached to big things, whatever.
Are
So,
there people like this?
yeah, him, Renee, the one who taught. We preoccupy ourselves with a lot of problems that we can't change anyway. But it keeps coming and coming and coming and coming in your meditation. I don't know if you noticed. And you think the more I think about it, something will change. No, it won't. It just upsets you and gets your mind away from the object. Yeah? So I'm not talking about meditation on compassion or loving kindness. I'm talking about mental quietude or single point of concentration. Yeah? So we're usually not so attached to a boring life. Yeah, we want excitement, we want action. So actually, yeah. Well, he meant it as a half a joke, but I think he's right. Yeah, you might have noticed how when a lot of things is going on in your life, your daily meditation is very difficult to be on the object. Or
That part is right, but I find it hard to believe that his life is good.
his life is very,
His lack of negative activities,
Yeah.
immoral.
okay. His life is very quiet. He's doing half of the year. He's doing retreat alone in his cabin in the forest somewhere.
This is enough.
And it fills the heart, and
Yeah.
it's great.
So, but he meant the outside, like your daily activities, and the rest of the time he's traveling and he's teaching. But he's not getting involved in many things like me. I get involved in everything, so he doesn't really. He's just doing his practice and so like this. But yeah, when your life is very exciting, then difficult to have a quiet mind. Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. So it's because it kind of keeps coming and coming and coming. Right. So what we will do this weekend is we will look at the past, kind of what does it mean to have a past. We'll talk about this tomorrow because I don't want to keep you too long tonight. We'll talk about the past, and we'll talk about to check if we want to go on this path, do we have what we need? Because if you want to go on a journey, you need certain things. And if you don't have them, it makes the journey totally impossible. If you go to the airport without a ticket and you think somebody will let you in, well, probably are not able to go anywhere. Yeah, so we have to check first. First we have to check, do I want to go on this path? What is this path? So that we look at it briefly and it will be talked about again and again and again and again. And then the other one is what do we need to go on that path, which is called precious human rebirth. But I would like to read you a quote by Einstein, which I find very, very meaningful. And he's not a Buddhist, but he was a very wise person, and he had a lot of knowledge, like deep knowledge, spiritual knowledge also, not just physics. But from that also I think he had very, very deep insights about what human life is all about. So I know Chaya knows the quote because we shared it one point and we said, I really like it. Maybe some of you also know it, or some of you maybe know it. Miri is nodding.
I
Which
think
one?
it's in Pema Children's book.
Huh?
The places you're afraid of. In Pema Children's books.
Mm. Well, yeah, there is a lot of quotes, right? So anyway, one of them is, a human being is part of the whole, called by us the universe. A part limited in space and time, like us. Yeah? He experiences himself or herself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest of the world. A kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. So this is what the Buddha says. Our mind, our consciousness is creating that